Live. How is everybody doing tonight? Positivity, what's going on? Get my mic a little closer. Let some people get in here and we'll start chatting. All right. So there's a live broadcast notice, so we should start getting some people in here. Obviously, as the title talks about, I'm going on vacation, so no lives for a little bit. Hopefully. DF, what's going on? Hello from Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah, hopefully, crossing my fingers, because this will be attempt number 3 to take this trick. Andrew Lindsay says Becky Witt, outstanding. Yes, she is. She does not have any of the... Shouldn't have all the BS that... that a lot of the management gurus talk, push, profit over everything else. It's a lot of good information she talks about, So yes, Becky Witt is excellent. Charles Johnstone, hey guys, I just added my articulating borescope, and I'm also waiting for a closed jump pack and also Oscilloscope delivered tonight. Awesome, dude. Sure you meant Chlor jump pack, but Tony B, no, I did not. I was scratching my knee. I have a knee brace on, and well, it kind of is irritating sometimes. But I was scratching. Positive incarnate, so I've only been a tech for 2 years, and I had a card that needed a transfer case, got approved, never had anything that big before. The tech I'm working with gave me some guidance, but I did all the work. That's awesome. Transfer cases usually, well, the rear wheel drive usually aren't too bad. And it's a good learning experience when dealing with heavy line, so that's a good first job to do something that big. Charles Johnson, yeah, Chlor. Chlor makes really good jump boxes, so I've got 2 of them, so they'll last you for a very long time. I mean, the one I have has probably bounced off the shop floor probably over 100 times. The one I've got, the clamp is a little messed up. Every now and then it pops apart when it falls, and you just pop it back together with the spring in the right direction, but still works. It's getting a little weak. That's why I have a second one. But they work really well, especially for bringing in cars with dead batteries, because you can drive them in instead of having to push them in, because it has enough reserve capacity to actually keep a vehicle running, whereas a lithium-ion jump box may not, at least in my experience. Charles Johnson, I've dropped the Chlor boxes too at the shop a couple times. They still keep going. Yep. Yeah, I'm glad positivity that it worked out, and that's like I said, that's a great first heavy line job. Beaver Santana, I'm doing great. About to be doing a whole lot better knock on wood, as I was saying earlier, this is my third attempt at this trip. It was originally supposed to happen in 2020, and then, you know, COVID, and then we were supposed to do it in December, had everything booked, and then mother-in-law and situation. This time, the mother-in-law is in a memory care facility, so we don't have to worry about her and my son taking care of her, so she'll be, you know, professionals be taking care of her. When we get back, she'll come out of there and come back home, but for the trip, you know, being overseas, because we're going to the UK, it was a little difficult leaving my mother-in-law home. You know, she has dementia, and, you know, well, we've got her medication regulated, all that. It's just, she still needs a lot of assistance. So, yeah, hopefully when, you know, hopefully we'll be getting on a plane Saturday night and flying across the pond. So, yeah, it's Charles Johnstone. Just got a quick recommendation. I got a DXZ Torx articulating borescope. They work very well. I got mine for $100. That's cool. Let's see if it looks like. Yeah, that looks like pretty much there's probably 30, 40 of those models out there. But, you know, they're Chinese made. Everybody seems to be thinking they make them really good. You know, it's a really good product. So I'm probably going to have to pick me one of those up. Andrew Lindsay, where in the UK? Primarily Scotland and Ireland. Like I said, primarily we're going to be in Scotland and Ireland. London, we're going to be in for, you know, most a couple days. Basically, we get there, we chill out for a day, flying across the pond, and I think we've got a day of just daughter sightseeing, and then we fly up to Dublin, and then we're in Dublin. No. Well, either Scotland or Ireland, and we're spending primarily the time there in Scotland and Ireland. You're from Northern Ireland. That's cool. Unfortunately, I will not be going to Northern Ireland. But you know, Dublin, Edinburgh. Big one for me is we're going back to Scotland, and we're going back to Lisle. Beautiful island. They do a bunch of whiskey stuff there, but it's just a gorgeous place to just hang out. So hopefully, barring any, you know, catastrophic problems. Oddly enough, I don't know if any of my chat will remember him. He used to have a YouTube channel that he was pretty active on, but he stopped. Mark McGuire, who's a Ford dealer tech. Because apparently now to rent cars in the UK, you have to have two referrals of residents in the UK to rent a car. And so I had to ask him for a reference. So that was a little weird. Pity Giants Causeway, very interesting. I don't actually know what that is. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we're not going that far. But yeah, we me and my wife went to the UK and Scotland in 2019. And we loved it. Immediately wanted to go back. My daughter, for her graduation, we were going to take her in 2020, and it's me, my wife, and my daughter going on this trip. And so it will be it's should be awesome. Charles Johnstone, that's the cool vacation. My last name is Johnstone, which comes from Scotland. My wife's family on her mom's side is from Wales. My family's from Germany and Poland, so Pixel Parade. Have you noticed that so many of the best auto tech YouTubers are all from Georgia? Yourself, David Pike, JT the Car Guy, Royalty Auto, great stuff. Well, I appreciate you putting me in that group. David Pike's a friend of mine. The guys over at Royalty Auto, I know them all. I've hung out with their crew. Heck, I sure would actually ate dinner at his table when I went to STX, and I've known him for years on I-ATN. So yeah, now it's surprising how really it's surprising that many are out of Georgia, because I don't know why. It seems like there's not a lot of content creators in Georgia for some reason. But yeah, it's nice to be included in that crowd. Beaver Santana. I've been at this shop I'm working for a little over 3.5 years. Haven't got a raise, only $1, but the shop is moving. And I think I'm underpaid. Been in the field 15 years. I don't know what to do. I think I should move on. Don't make any rash decisions. That's really important. But I would definitely start looking around for other shops in your immediate area, not necessarily next door, but in that area that you're okay with commuting to, and try to find a job somewhere else. Easiest way to get a raise in this industry. It sucks to say this, but it's 100% true. The best way to get a substantial pay increase is to change jobs. It shouldn't be the reality, but it is. And that's pretty sad for most shop owners that they care so poorly about, their employees, that they don't give them raises often. 3 years is ridiculous. 3.5 years is ridiculous. You should be getting some sort of increase every year, at the minimum every 2 years, which 2 years is just way too long for a pay increase. So I'd start looking for a job. If you feel you want to, once you have secured a new position at higher pay, you can go back and try to renegotiate. But only do that. Understand you really only can do that once to that shop, because otherwise they will. Thank you, Charles. Talked about looking for other shops a few days ago. Yes, watch that video. But yeah, go use that to negotiate with your current shop. But understand that you can only do that once to that shop. And if they're not really giving you a raise after 3.5 years, they're probably not going to give you another raise in 3.5 years. So maybe it is time to move on. Space Cat 72, what is a vacation? Something that very rarely happens for automotive technicians. From Rhode Island. Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously Rhode Island's a little smaller than Atlanta, but yeah, I mean, I just start looking around and trying to find a better place to work. T. Corrales, man, the one day I decide to have a massive headache and guy next bay over is going to town on anchor pins with an air hammer, LOL. I'm gonna be honest here. I keep Advil keep prescription strength Advil in my toolbox, prescription strength naproxen in my toolbox. That's a leave, by the way, if you don't know what naproxen is. Advil, naproxen. I keep acid pills in my toolbox, you know, for heartburn. And everybody in the shop always knows it. You know, so trust me, I get hit up all the time for, you got any, because, you know, I'm not a spring chicken and a freaking headache or extra knee pain hurts regardless of age, but yeah, Beaver Santana, you do live in a small state. I have been to Rhode Island. T. Corrales, worst part is I knew it was coming because he asked to borrow my air hammer. Yeah, that's even worse. You enabled him. Charles Johnstone. Today I used a sledgehammer and a hub shocker tool. Went to town and Yankee Dodge Nitro on both front wheel bearings. It was a good day. Beaver, you're welcome. Guess he's in the northeast part of the state. But yeah. When you get to go town, you know, hopefully when you get to go downtown with a sledgehammer on something, you got something to work out. Because that's the best way to deal with any of your problems. Just beat the living snot out of something. Oh, yeah. But yeah, no, it's, you know, like I said, that's like everybody knows I keep all that stuff in my toolbox. So I will be sitting there and they're like, oh, you got any Advil? Yep. Like, what's the big white ones? Because it'll be the little, you know, non-prescription Advil, 200 milligrams. I go, those are 800 milligrams. I actually give out more of the regular Advil than the prescription ones for some reason. Everybody's kind of afraid of the 800 milligrams. Oh. Sure. Matt Elbury, this past week, started my own shop, and the contractor that built my shop has brought his menu back 3 times for different things. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Repeat customer. and apparently he recognized it was 3 different things, so that's cool. Good luck with the new shop. T. Krause, I have the naproxen 1,000 milligrams that I was given somewhat recently when I herniated 2 discs, and now at 32 I have the lower back of a 55-year-old. Man, that sucks. You know, you're only allowed 1,500 milligrams of naproxen a day, right? Right? I have the 500 milligrams. So but yeah, that sucks. I've pinched nerves in my back, but I've never had herniated discs. That just sucks, man. My dad went through, my dad was, has shrapnel on his back, and then he'd had to have his discs fused several times in his back between Vietnam and working as a truck driver, etc. So one of the reasons why I may not have taken care of my eyes or my hearing or stuff like that, but I've taken care of my back. Yeah, T. Krause. Yeah, it was a once a day dose. Yeah, 1,000 milligrams is pretty steep of a dose. I think my bottle says take 1 pill as needed, not to exceed, and it literally says on it not to exceed 1,500 milligrams per day. But yeah, no, it's pretty there's it's like anything else. I mean, Tylenol causes issues, Advil causes issue, naproxen, which is another NSAID, causes issues. But yeah, back problems suck. Charles Johnstone, chlor jump pack just got here, guys. Noise, it's going in the trunk, waiting for my U-scope now. Look forward to practicing. Awesome, man. And that's what you need to do. You need to start practicing on known good cars and making sure you get good signals. You figure out how to set the settings on it so you get a good signal on the screen that you can interpret. That's one of the biggest mistakes I see people with scopes is they never scope anything that's good. So they think because they're not getting a signal out of a bad car that's the problem. And then you look at their ground and it's not hooked up right, or they're not in the connector far enough and they're not getting a good signal. So yeah, practice on known good cars, cam sensors, crank sensors, alternator control signals. Just practice. And you'll learn a lot about cars. Positive Incarnate. How would you handle someone blaming you for something they broke? Today at work, one of my co-workers told the assistant service manager that I broke a CV boot he broke when he was trying to help me. I would be 100% honest. He was helping me. He broke it. But he was trying to help me. Don't try to divert. Don't try to, it's just, that's how it happened. Thing about kind of rant here. How is a CV boot getting broke that big of a deal. I mean, seriously, they're what, $40? It costs you $40 and a little bit of your tech's time to take care of the customer. It's not that big of a deal. And definitely in the grand scheme of things, $20 to $40 for a CV axle is just cost of doing business. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. I hate when managers are all over somebody for something that, yes, could have been prevented, but sounds like you were struggling with something. It happens. It happens in this industry. And I don't care how good you are. I can tell you, everyone in this chat has broken something on accident. I mean, I've broken bunches of stuff. My best example was a radiator in a Cadillac. It has a little hose coming off the radiator, and I put my pinky on it. My little pinky. My pinky's weight broke that nipple off the radiator. Shop had to eat a radiator. I had to eat the time. That was back years ago, but it shouldn't be a big deal. You know, as a technician, you need to learn from it and move on. As a shop owner, it's cost of doing business. Make sure the technician knows that, it's not great, but just take care of it and move on. It's not that big of a deal. Okay, Positive Incarnate said, "Thank you. Thankfully, one of my other coworkers overheard and said it straight, as I didn't know." Well, good for your coworker. That's good that they stood up for you. I mean, you learned something about your coworker, didn't you? That they more than willing to roll you under the bus. So watch your back, kind of thing. T. Corrales, people like that in the shop like to bust my chops about my back. Yeah. If they're just busting your chops, not a big deal. But yeah, no, I've dealt with people with back problems, and one of the things I've always done in the shop, whatever my position is, if I see somebody doing something that's bad for their back, I try to stop them, or I try to convince them not to do it. Just simply because it's you only get one back. And, the amount of techs that spend thousands of dollars on chiropractors, or, et cetera, for back problems there's some genetics to it. Some people just have poor genetics in their body and things degrade faster than other people. But for the most part, and obviously the other, one big one is accidents, falls, stuff like that you had no control over. I know Mario of Super Mario Diagnostics has back problems because of a motorcycle accident. But the main cause of, I would say the main cause of back injuries in this industry is people doing stupid stuff. Lifting we lift heavy things in this industry, and if you're not lifting properly, you're gonna hurt yourself. Simple as that. It's I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen guys bent over a Honda on the ground, trying to do, spark plugs or air filters or something like that. And they're all bent over and stooped over, and they bend up, and their back's all stiff. I'm like, you're on a lift. Raise it up so you're comfortable height. so you're not stressing your back. And it's surprising how many people don't get that, and, I didn't think, sitting there with a 1-inch impact with no hearing protection was a perfectly good idea when I was young. So I can't fault them, but I try to educate them on proper use so they don't hurt themselves. T. Corrales, when I get done doing brakes and rotors on Freightliner, when I use the dolly hand cart to get them from my bay to the scrap dumpster, yeah, not with my backs. I'll take it easy any way I can. Dude, I would use the dolly without back problems. Before, like the last shop had, porters, my orange roll cart that I use for brakes and stuff. You know how many thousands of pounds of brake rotors that thing is carried to the metal bin? But yeah, advice, just FYI, always find the easy way. The most efficient people on the planet are also the laziest people you will ever find. Me included. I am always looking for the easiest way to do any task. It's my mantra. Efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. i.e., the least amount of work. Charles Jonestown, I'm going to buy a low amp and high amp probe later on. Just got to practice with the basic kit. Yep, that's what you should do. But I really want a low amp and high amp clamp soon. AES Waves has some really good affordable options for you. And they work really well. Basically they're really close to the Pico ones, but they're significantly cheaper. Matt, I have a tire mate for the shop, so we don't buck tires anymore. That's awesome. As a shop owner, mistakes happen. You learn from it and move on. Yes, exactly. Positive Incarnate, you're welcome. Raymond Lopez, what's up? How you doing? But yeah, no, I mean, you do. You learn from it and you move on. As a technician, you learn from it and move on. It's all you can do. As a shop owner, you hope they learn, and you hope then you move on. You can't. It just annoys me because you're focused on a couple of bucks. You arguing about it is costing you more money than that part that got broke. In that case, we're not, in that case, you're not even talking about anything but a, cheap CV axle. Raymond Lopez. Hi, everybody. How are you, everyone? I am short time and hopefully going on vacation. I'm doing great. Positive Incarnate. I was looking at the Multi-Comp Pro MP 720 780 by Newark. Since it's a handheld oscilloscope for a good price, what do you think it would be pretty good for a first scope or general scope in use? By Newark. Let's do a little Googling. Two channel, 40 megahertz. Yeah, no, 40 megahertz is pretty damn slow. So I don't know how. Might be useful for some stuff, but I don't know how useful it's going to be for PS. Seems that scope seems pretty slow for automotive use, so I don't know how good it is. I would definitely recommend you go towards the U scope, as I've already recommended from AES Wave. Actually, let me see. U scope. I don't know if it'll give me specs. Samples at 1 million second. Yeah, 200 kilohertz versus 40 megahertz. So I definitely would recommend the U scope over that. That range is pretty freaking awful. So, yeah, I would definitely recommend going for scope as a go away. As a better option than that one. Charles Jones, I'm literally 26. Many times I raise a lift thinking about what Ephraim says about lifting a vehicle to a comfy position. I did that today. Good for you, man. Yeah, I don't get, I've seen guys on their tippy toes trying to reach something, and all they got to do is lower it down, and the job becomes instantly a whole lot easier. It's just like, just take the few seconds and take care of it and fix it. T. Corrales had a guy go to swap out a leaking coolant reservoir. I told him, pay attention to the bolt length when you get new bolts. He didn't, and sent a bolt straight through radiator and casing. Great. Yeah, I bet it was great. Raymond Lopez, very busy. Since we hired a lady, we can be more busy. Yeah, exactly. T. Corrales, I looked at him and said, well, did you learn? Now you get to learn how to do a radiator swap. LOL. Yeah. Would 100 megahertz be better or still too slow looking for a scope? That's still too slow. For some very basic stuff, it'll work okay, but a lot of stuff in automotive, you're probably going to miss a lot of things. Like I said, you're better off going for the U scope. Anyway, I recommend the Tantec. Guessing you mean Hanatech. TO 1112D. Yeah. one's not much better though. It's only 250 megahertz. Sorry, I'm looking at specs. um, I mean, all right. I don't have any experience with that particular scope. Famous Lick Rip. Hello, my friend. What's up? Is Snap-on still running at 100 megahertz? I don't know. Video scopes, scopes and meters. Diagnostics. Go Zeus. Accessories, damn it. Legend. For some reason Zeus isn't working, so probably have a new 6 million samples, but they got the megahertz bandwidth wrong. Well, I guess it is the kind of non-scope legend. But it can't be 3 megahertz. That thing be useless. Only shows accessories. That's just weird. I can't find it easily. I know their sample rate's not that low. Sorry, everyone. I meant we got busy more. Of course, you add a tech. You need to keep that tech busy. Anderson, what's up? He's all the way in Zimbabwe. Charles Johnstone, is the MSIG setup good? My next scope purchase would be an MSIG. I've never personally used an MSIG, but Super Mario likes them, so I would say they're good. But I don't have any personal experience with that particular scope. Super Mario built his channel originally on a MixSig scope, and then he purchased a used Pico, and he's grown from there. But yeah, so he uses the Pico, so if he says it's good, I'm gonna trust Super Mario. So yeah, sorry, Matt. It's I didn't show you on screen, but you click the Zeus page, it would just take you to accessories. The Modus would take you to accessories and not the actual tool, so I couldn't find specs. So I didn't want to keep just staring around the microphone looking at stuff. So quick wrench tool junkie, good cheap scope is the 2204A or the 2205 from Pico. Yeah, they're a little slow for automotive as well, and you can't use the Pico automotive software suite. But yeah, I'd feel more confident recommending the Pico scopes than you know, the one that was originally asked about. I think they're also pretty slow as far as scope, sample rates, and all that. But for standalone, the MixSig seems pretty good. Oh, Snap-on website sucks. Yes, it does. Doing like screen captures and, you know, stuff for videos, and it's like going to their sites. Snap-on Mac is slightly better. Matco is slightly better, but their search sucks probably as bad as Snap-on's. If you don't have the part number. But their site is more complete than Snap-on. But yeah, the Snap-on website is absolute garbage. Figure for a multi-billion-dollar company, their tool business would have better, like, okay, let me rephrase that. You figure all of their companies would have better websites, but they all suck. I forget what I was on it, but I was on Challenger Lift's website, and the when I worked at Challenger, the guy that built and maintained that website was their marketing director, and he's the one that designed the old website. They have completely revamped the Challenger website, and it is like 1,000 times worse. And, you know, they finally stopped using the pictures I took. For the longest time, I had pictures on Challenger's websites that I took as a regional sales manager. So technically they were paying me, so they had the right to use the pictures. But yeah, it sucks. You know, I don't design them, and they get horrible people to design them. James Jones, how many bolts have you broken with the new stubby? Luckily, none. I've got really good trigger control, you know, and the 3/8 is set on 2, not 3. But I do have so I haven't broken anything with them so far, but, you know, time will tell. Not paying attention, just going and going and going, you might break some stuff. But yeah, that's the main reason, is I have good trigger control and know not to keep hammering on something that's already tight. So Positive Incarnate, this is probably a silly question. It's not a silly question. I've already read it. But why is sample rate and the speed so important with scopes? What's the difference in slow versus fast scope? The sample rate is basically how many times a scope looks at the signal. So if you've got a really slow scope, so let's think microseconds, microseconds. So, huge amount of space in between, and that's just a micro, just a second, and there's 100 microseconds, I think, or 1,000, something like that. Depending on how long the cycles of when it checks the signal, you might miss a spike. You might miss a dropout. So the faster the scope, the more likely you are to see a signal just drop out or change it. But if you it's only checks the signal, which is, cycle time, it may miss an actual event. And that's why one of the reasons why ATS and Pico are better than Snap-on is because they're how often they check the signal is faster than Snap-on. Snap-on's perfectly usable for automotive, but that's why you want a fast scope, because it checks for the signal changing much more often than a slower scope. Matt goes, with a Snap-on sight, you have to have the bloody part number or you're screwed. Yes. That's why I said Matco's site is better. But their search is like, you go to Matco's site and, if you try to search for XYZ, you either get stupidly wrong things come up or it doesn't find anything. But if you go to the category and of what that tool is in that category and you just scroll through the pages, you'll find it. Snap-on site, you can't even do that. Half the time you go through all those pages and the tool's not there. You go Google the part number for XYZ, you finally get the part number, you copy and paste, and oh, there it is all of a sudden on both sites. So yes. Oh. So, let's see. Yeah. All right. Kevin Kramer, my 6-month review is coming up, and this is my first professional automotive job, and I'm worried I will not get a raise. Any tips or advice on getting a raise besides switching jobs? I really love it. If you're at your 6-month review, you may, or the possibilities are endless on whether or not you'll get a raise. Okay. So don't go into it worried about a raise. Because either they're going to give it to you or they're not. What I would do is go in there with an open mind, because they're doing a 6-month review. So they care about progress and your development. So go into it with 100% of accepting and understanding that they're going to criticize you. And it may be, simple things, like, can you write a better description of the problem with the car or something like that? Don't know, your performance personally, so I can't say exactly what they're going to say, but I'm giving you an example. Take whatever they say and, and let's say they critique, several things about you that you need to improve. Take that advice, listen to them on what they need you to improve on. Now, if they go, we can't give you a raise because of these problems, ask for a review in 3 months on that set price, on getting a raise. Say, can we do this? Can I work on this for the next 3 months? And can we meet up again and re-review me so I can see about getting that raise if I improve these things? Give them a reason to give you that raise. So be proactive about it and go, can we meet again in 3 months so I can try to improve on these things so I can get the raise that I think I deserve. But be real open-minded when they talk to you about your shortcomings. This is the stuff they see. This stuff, doesn't matter who you are. There's going to be stuff that other people do. There's going to be stuff that you do that other people aren't going to be happy with, whether it's, XYZ, whether, you left a stain in a car one time and you didn't notice it and didn't clean it up, etc. So take what they say, but try to get, if they aren't giving you a raise. If they're giving you a raise, man, take their take their raise and their criticism and try to improve and then move on. But if they say these are the reasons why we're not giving you a raise, ask for a 3-month review. Try to get them to kind of commit to that and go, if I improve this stuff, can we, meet again in 3 months and reevaluate me getting a pay increase? Just, that would be my advice. Positivity Incarnate. Do you have any tips on how to improve your ability to visualize or translate the service information to actual work? Positivity Incarnate. Sometimes I read service information and I don't get it, and a coworker points out the car and it suddenly makes sense. You want the truth? And don't take this as a negative. Don't take this as me knocking your abilities or anything like that. You're a visual learner. Honestly, I would recommend go to YouTube. Take the repair you need to do, go to YouTube. Watch a video of the thing happening, maybe 2x it, but just watch a YouTube video on what you're going to do. That'll help you visualize it much better than the pictures on the page. That's just a you thing. I've worked with many, many techs that works so much better for them than looking at service information. It's just how you learn. And that's a lot of people nowadays. That might be a knock at social media and that kind of stuff, but try to find the repair you need to do on YouTube. Watch it for a little bit. That'll help you visualize what you need to do. So hopefully that helps you, because it's I can read and I'm a very different generation than a lot of my chat. I can read a description on what to do and understand what I need to do. I go back to paper publications where there were no pictures. So I had to learn how to read instructions. And for a lot of people, that doesn't work real well. So watch a quick YouTube video. All right. ISO, what's up? Charles Johnson, my shop owner, made a note about comebacks. Basically, a lot of comebacks in the shop with newer techs. His note was about taking away labor hours from flag techs. I'm a GS who flagged with guarantee. Comebacks are always a bad thing. Let me rephrase that. Comebacks, unless there's extenuating circumstances, comebacks suck for everybody involved. They suck for the customer. They suck for the service team. They suck for the technician. And the thing about it is 9 times out of 10, it could have been prevented by the tech. And it's easy to bitch to the techs about it, because a lot of times it's preventable. I mean, I'm not going to... there was a post the other day about comebacks, and it's like, if you say you don't have comebacks, that means your comebacks go to somebody else. Because anybody that ever says they have comebacks, I immediately discount everything they say. because they're straight up lying. But, you know, sometimes it's, you know, and keep in mind, a lot of shop owners, shop managers consider a defective part a comeback. And, you know, a dormant part that breaks 2 weeks after you put it in isn't your fault, but it's still in their mind a comeback. So, you know, you have to you have to balance that, you know. You having you know, doing an oil repair and having a oil pumping out of an engine because you didn't verify the leak was fixed, that's on you. A part failed 2 days after you shipped the car, that's on the part. So anyway, I would love to see FRM's reaction to this announcement. I've been on both sides of that discussion. Kevin, you're welcome. Good luck with your review. Hopefully it's, you know, roses and they love you and it's big raise, you know, hopefully. I've been on both sides of that discussion. I've been on the management side of it where, yes, comebacks were becoming a huge problem. Technicians were whipping through work, not verifying repairs, not verifying vehicles were actually not, you know, verifying, you know, not even verifying they were fixed, you know, stuff like that. It got pretty bad there for a while. And part of it in that situation was management above me, because they were just pushing us as hard as we could go. With, you know, this was, you know, the old shop, and it was when we were just this single upper shop. We didn't have the lower shop, and they were just pumping us with cars. And like at one point, the entire front of the shop had cars outside of every bay. Every bay in the shop had cars tore down, and they were asking us to look at like a bunch more cars. And, you know, we were just so far backed up. We were just getting pushed so hard that things got, you know, neglected. And that was one of the arguments I had to make with management above me, is that it was not conducive to quality pushing that many cars through the shop. They didn't like that response. On the other side of it, I personally have never had a high comeback ratio. I've made some stupid mistakes. Do not get me wrong. I've had some expensive mistakes. Don't get me wrong. So don't think I'm pretending to be perfect. But in general, I've never had a high comeback ratio. But I've had comebacks, and I feel stupid every time I have a comeback. I always try to figure out what I did wrong, processes, etc., trying to correct them. So I always took it as to heart of how I can improve. ISO, what do you think of the scope that's used by Royalty Auto guys? I like how the leads and graphs are colored, makes it easy to see. Sherwood loves Bernie Thompson, which is ATS scopes. He's a wicked smart guy. The interface for ATS scopes is very mid-90s-esque. The GUI, graphic user interface, is very dated looking, and there's good features about it and there's bad features about it, but it comes down to personal preference. But it is a awesome scope. So if you like that setup, get one, because they are awesome. Positive Incarnate, thank you. You're welcome. Charles Johnson, I use YouTube. It makes me more efficient. The guys in the video have struggled and will explain the situation. I like that. You don't need to repeat history. Yeah, exactly. I mean, but for visual learners, it's a night and day difference. You know, there's, for people that learn visually, they best way I can describe it. You're looking at a wiring diagram, and this is where a lot of visual learners really, really struggle. Like I will print out wiring diagrams and, you know, have them taped together and just be, you know, drawn with my highlighter, and that, you know, people with that learn visually kind of struggle with it. You take them over to the car and you go, you know, here's the connector. You sit there and show them on the connector and the harness. Let's say you're wanting to figure out which wire goes to, you know, is this signal from the PCM or whatever. You go to the connector, you look at the picture of the connector, and you kind of show them, and you're like, here's the color of the wire. That's the correct pin. You know, you can tell by the connector, and you kind of show them, and it kind of clicks with them. Whereas if you just show them on the diagram on all data, it's just not going to click. But you go to the car and kind of show them what you're talking about, it just kind of makes more sense to them. So anyway, T. Kraus, doing a purge valve change per RO, PMRO, remove the snap ring that held it in place, and I couldn't get it out normally. Well, then started the truck and let the truck eject itself. Built there and set it out the bottom at 135 PSI. Yeah, I bet that would that'll work. I've done something similar, and I'm trying to remember what it was. Dang, that's going to bug me. Anyway. Oh, I remember what it was. I didn't use the car. The valve, the variable compressors, you know, that everybody started using, that have the little control valve in the back of the compressor. I use compressed air to blow it out because it would not come out. And the service advisor had already bitched me out wanting to sell a new compressor because the guy had gone online and said it was his valve and yada, yada, yada. And we had to get the valve from some questionable site. And I was less than thrilled to be doing the repair, but I couldn't get the valve to actually come out. So I think I punched air in the compressor side and just turned the compressor and it finally just went poop. But yeah, it's always fun doing that kind of stuff. Matt Embry has some good advice for you. Being hands-on learner, visual learner. That's what that equates to, by the way. Had issues as well reading manuals. I had a mentor that taught to take cars apart without looking at a manual and fighting how this thing comes out. Yeah, exactly. Freedom Kings, Philadelphia here. Charles Johnson in my shop. It's bad right now. Techs are not verifying repairs. Are we all a team, our other tech's problems, everybody else's problems. Someone needs to QC. It's a fact everyone needs to work with. This is, and it is definitely a bigger problem with flat rate techs. So feel free to flame me, but like I've seen flat rate guys fill up a cooling system on a car that has known issues with bleeding coolant. Literally fill up the coolant, put the cap on, crank it up, park it. And you're sitting there going, that's going to overheat in like 2 minutes going down the road. You need to go test drive that. But yeah, no, I hate that about techs that don't verify the repairs. I talked about it, I don't remember, on a video or something like that. BMWs, when I'm doing major oil leak repairs, let's say I'm doing the valve cover, the oil filter housing, and the oil pan, that sucker gets cleaned up and pressure washed. The oil pan bolts get properly torqued with the torque sequence and the rotation. Literally why I have a 1/4 inch torque wrench with angle. I then go drive the snot out of it and then bring it back in the shop, put it on the lift, and re-inspect every location for that oil leak. It's just a really good example because I can't tell you how many techs I have seen crank the car up, put all the lower shielding on, all the upper covers and the braces and all that. Go test drive it, pull it back in the parking lot and park it. It's like, and didn't run the car at all before they put all that stuff back together. It's like, how are you going to know that car's not leaking? For me, that car gets all put back together. I put oil in it. I crank it up, let it run on the lift, continue to double check, make sure no leaks. And then I go drive it without any of the covers on, bring it back in and verify my repairs are good, and then put all that stuff back on. Is it 100% efficient? Absolutely not. But I just did major surgery on that car, and verifying my repairs is more important than a little bit of efficiency loss. And it bugs me when people don't QC their own work. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes you just miss something and it happens. But, you should at least be trying to QC your stuff. Raymond Lopez, comebacks happen. Don't take it personally. Even as an owner of the shop, I make mistakes. Yep. ISO, ATS versus Picoscope, which is better? Neither is better. They're both excellent scopes. Keep in mind, Sherwood has been using scopes for a considerably long time. Okay? So, of course, he makes it look easy, and he's been using ATS for a very long time. So he's extremely familiar with them. But as far as which one's better, neither. They're both excellent scopes. Raymond Lopez, silly mistake I made. I short fuses and burned out the cluster. I broke box spring. I forgot to lube the slide pins on the caliper. Dude, I can tell you stuff I've done. There's a lot of them. Charles Johnson, the mistakes I make are missing things on vehicles. Car comes in with 4 or 5 complaints and I miss one. Sometimes a major one. It's hard at times. You don't have much time to diagnose. If it's a paper RO, I will check off after I've checked out something. I would put a check. Because that way you know, when you're referring to it, you can see that, you know, problem number 5 wasn't looked at. So, but yeah, you can easily miss looking at a complaint. I've done it many times. So, Positive Incarnate is the old-fashioned burp bucket for cooling burping, something that works on all cars or just American. Dude, it won't even work on all American cars anymore. So many cars now have very complicated cooling systems. A lot of vehicles literally require vacuum filling. I'll give you a good story. A technician was working on a newer BMW with R1234YF, and the condenser radiator, he drained because he put a condenser in it, but there's a radiator system for the condenser side of it, and he filled up that side of the coolant. Extremely poor performance out of the AC. I was helping him. I had to vacuum fill the system. Once I vacuum filled it, AC worked perfectly. Just a good example of, you know, burp buckets don't work extremely well anymore in a lot of different car designs. Freedom Kings Films. Funny story to a dealer trade ride. I was driving on the highway to return the car and got a flat out of nowhere. Instantly pull over and watch the tire go roll down the shoulder. Oh, God. Oh, well, I had an incident where I backed a car off a jack stand. Oops. Funny story. When we opened my last shop, I was employee number 3, and employee number 4 that a customer waiting for his truck. The shop owner went to go drive it. Wheel came off, went in the river. So he had to go spelunking for that. Got lug nuts, put it back on, and had to replace the rotor and some other stuff. So yeah, it happens. Try your best not to make that happen. But yeah, it happens to some of the best. Scott Ennis, do techs get paid to verify repair, or is it free inspection, paid for repair on flat rate, verify for free? It's part of the repair. That's like they technically pay you to pull the car in to put it on a lift on flat rate on the labor time for whatever the job is. I mean, they pay you like 1/10 or whatever, but it's technically part of the repair time. So yes, you get paid for it. Not really well in most cases. The BMW example I gave, that job is 100% gravy, and I will do that job every day of the week for, 10 hours of labor that I can get done in 4, unless it's all-wheel drive and the labors go up. But yeah, it's kind of sort of built in, but not really. Matt says, I have a shop owner pay me QC vehicles after it was paid by other techs. I drove him crazy because I was slow at it, but kept comebacks low. There's lots of stuff that management groups push that I really, really do not like. QC techs, I think, are something that is really, really good. One, it frees your tech up to do profitable work. A QC tech really doesn't have to be that technical, really. I mean, a porter really can do a QC repair, a QC check. They go drive it, make sure the check engine light doesn't come on if it's a, check engine light repair, make sure there's no clunking if it was suspension repair, et cetera, et cetera. So a QC tech, I think, is a good thing for a shop. And I've never had a problem with somebody else QC in my work. Because if, I would have confidence that a customer could look under the vehicle and see I did a proper repair. So, yeah, I don't have any problem with QC, and that's the advantage. It keeps comebacks low, because the best thing you can do for a issue is delay the customer picking up and fix it right. Just something as simple as a cover not being put back on right. Or like, let's say that BMW, and I didn't quite turn one of the clips all the way, and it dropped out and fell out, and the thing is flapping. That'd be a comeback. That'd be on me. But a QC tech found that, brought it back in. I was able to fix it quick order and not have a customer inconvenience. So, yeah. Charles Johnstone, do you add labor for not installing all the covers, etc.? QC is huge. I put everything back. I will. I'm gonna tell a funny story. So I have this thing where I put parts along the side of the vehicle or behind the vehicle, in the order I took them off. So, whatever I'm doing, the retrieval of the part came off last, is closest to where I'm working. This one time I did a Silverado, it was a Tahoe, and the plastic cover that has the 1.8mm bolt, for some reason, I took it off and put it on my workbench. And I was sitting there working on something else, and I put something on the workbench and saw this cover, and I'm like, ran up front. Has this car been picked up yet? No. Grabbed the key, ran back, grabbed the cover, ran up to the Goodwill, popped the hood, put it back on, bolted it down, closed the hood. Customer never knew anything about it. But I put every cover back on because it's part of their car. Obviously, if things are destroyed like underbody stuff, I price out replacing the underbody stuff and go, do they want to do it? This is broken. This can't go back together, and get approval from the customer not to put it back on. Freedom King's film, being the only guy in the shop who can't drive stick well, I can, but not well. Millennial anti-theft device. It's funny because me and my wife, going to the UK, we're renting cars, and predominantly, more or less, you can find very few cars to rent that are not manual. And my wife, who can drive manual fine, but considering you're driving on the wrong side of the car and you're having to shift with your left hand, is quite worrisome to my wife. Now, when we did it in 2019, I had no problem. Freaked my wife out a lot because the roads are very narrow and trees are very close on some of those Scottish roads. And I was freaking her out on how close I was. And I'm like, I'm on the line. I can't go over her any further. But yeah, it's funny how many people can't drive. My daughter can't. I know my daughter and my son can't drive stick because I've never taught them because I haven't owned a stick vehicle in years. I'm not even sure my stepson can drive a stick vehicle. So unfortunately in the US, vehicles with manual transmissions is getting rare and rarer. ISO, I suck at scoping and I'm 31, so I'm so far behind. And when I watch YouTube videos, I can't grasp and focus after 5 minutes. I suck shaking my head. You don't suck. You need practice. You need to spend time with a scope. Once you sit there and do it, when you're doing it, it becomes much more clear. Scoping is a very abstract subject. You know, I've said this many times. It's voltage over time, but it's an abstract concept. You know, because everybody in this world that isn't familiar with scopes just looks at a DVOM and it's 5 volts, 12 volts, or whatever, and they can't get the histogram. So, ISO, find a non-broken car and scope it. Scope it over and over again. And once you figure that out, the videos will be much more interesting to you. It's simply the best example I can give you for me personally is in cylinder testing with a pressure transducer. Had a really hard time grasping the testing methodology because I wasn't getting how to translate what was going on the scope to what was really happening. And for me, it was just an excellent instructor, and that was Brandon Steckler. Him talking about it and explaining it in a way that I could visualize what he was talking about in a real scenario made it click for me. And you're just not finding that click moment for you where you kind of get it. And I think, honestly, it will be just practicing with no real goal in mind, but just getting as many signals as you can, getting a good signal and playing that way. Because if you're kind of zoning out after 5 minutes, it's probably because you're just not grasping the concepts that are being explained. Hope that helps. I don't know what that's about, Charles, but okay. T. Krause, beam counters, man. Beam counters. That's the type of manager I can't stand, doesn't care about nothing but the numbers. And that's the problem with a lot of the... I'm complaining about this, but that's a problem with a lot of the shop management groups, is they claim lots of stuff about the health of the shop and attitudes, but everything is secondary to the numbers. If, XYZ tech's having problems in his life and his work slipping a little bit, time to get rid of him, time to get new guy in. And that's my problem with a lot of the shop management groups is they just preach all about the dollars and they care about very little else. Freedom King Films, me and a coworker had to drive a car to another shop for service and he was behind me. I looked back and the hood starts going up. Oh God. That sucks, man. Charles Jones said my dad got a certificate in Italy for not getting in a wreck in Italy as a tourist. Freedom Kings Films. I know how to drive a manual. I've done it, but I stall a lot. That's just kind of experience. Especially with different vehicles and how different pedals work and how high the clutch engages. That's just not used to the vehicle itself. That's more of that than you lacking skill. It's just you're not familiar enough with that car that you're currently driving. Quick wrench tool junkie. Yeah, learning how to read in-cylinder pressure testing was tricky. Yeah, once I took Brandon Steckler's class, which by the way was his first time teaching it. It just clicked for me. I mean, I've been trying to get it. I read a lot of IATN posts about it. I'd taken several classes that had in-cylinder testing in it. And it never really, like, I got the concept of it, but I could never really put what was going on and be able to use it to actually diagnose cars. So it's just something has to click with you to grasp the concept you need. All right. Make sure I don't have any other questions I missed. Sherwood explained to me very carefully, and it finally clicked. Yeah, I mean, Sherwood's been doing pressure transducers. Sherwood's been doing pressure transducer stuff for a while, so. Raymond Lopez, my advice to you all: focus. The job pay will come with it. Yes, that's the thing is, do the job well, do the job correctly. Somebody's going to eventually start paying you for it. Definitely the first time driving stick was in a 95 F-150 with a straight 6 thing. That was so temperamental. First time I drove stick was at Six Flags over Georgia, and it was a Cushman scooter. 3 on the tree that was severely worn out. Then I drove my dad's F100 that was 3 on the tree, also worn out. And then I had a friend of mine that taught me how to drive stick in an old K car, a Chrysler K car. So, since then I've driven, 15 speed max, 6 speed max, obviously a bunch of cars and trucks, and I think there's 5 and 2, 5-speed, 2-speed differential, stuff like that. So, yep, nope, and my dad's truck was a 73 F100, so. All right. Got any more questions? All right. So I guess we're going to go ahead and call it a night for now. And T. Corrales, it kind of sucks that my wife doesn't know how to drive a manual because I have a plan what to take and I get stuck doing all the driving. Matt, I learned to drive a stick at a racetrack on a road course. It was nice. Take vehicle to $6,000, change gears. It's not a short trip. Fun fact, my wife drove manual transmissions up until the car she bought when I met her, which is crazy because she's lived in Atlanta for a lot of years. But she drove manual transmissions until the Chrysler Sebring she bought after her Dodge Neon. But yeah, my wife does, my wife knows how to drive a manual transmission, so they're showing a lot of ads. But practice. I'll go ahead and skip that. Anyway, hopefully I will be in the UK very shortly on Sunday morning, and so this will be the last live stream till I get back. So I appreciate everybody watching. Appreciate everybody stopping by. So as always, thanks for watching. I am the Flatrate Master.